What is going on, everyone, and welcome to WreckTalk. Sorry, I'm getting this video out a day later than I thought, but let's talk about this Georgia Tech Duke matchup. Now, this game is going to be the primetime game for ACC Network, which, interestingly enough, so it's 8 p.m. game. 5 of Georgia Tech's last 6 home games have been in the primetime ACC Network spot. I don't think Georgia Tech's ever played as many night games as they have in the past 2 years or so. And I guess a lot of that has to do with the ACC Network. So that has nothing to do with the game, but kind of interesting. Georgia Tech coming off of a much-needed bye week. Key in the presser talked about, being banged up and getting healthy kind of for the first time in the season. First bye week for Georgia Tech, much needed after Georgia Tech playing a week 0 game. Duke coming off of a big emotional 20-point comeback victory against their rival, North Carolina. Now, anyone who's watched this channel for any length of time knows exactly how I feel about North Carolina and Jeff Collins, but don't let my abject hatred for Jeff Collins take anything away from Duke, because North Carolina does have a better roster. If you look at recruiting rankings, like North Carolina has a better roster than Georgia Tech too. Duke going up to Chapel Hill and getting a win, especially coming back from a 20-point deficit and winning by 1, is a huge deal for them. Manny Diaz, you gotta give it to him. He can't really do any better than going undefeated. No one thought Duke was going to be undefeated through their first 5 games. I didn't think they were going to be undefeated through their first 4 games. Now, I've played a lot of smaller group of 5 teams, but Duke's in a total rebuild. Duke loses their head coach, Mike Elko, last year. He loses their DC to Georgia Tech, loses their, probably the best quarterback they've had since Daniel Jones, I guess, to Notre Dame. They're completely gutted, and you've got to respect what Duke and Manny Diaz are doing in Durham right now. I know I certainly do. So I've been kind of looking at Duke from the sideline a little bit this season, and I got to tell you, weeks ago I said, man, that Duke game kind of worries me. I think this is homecoming for Georgia Tech, and Georgia Tech is favored by 8.5 points. Now, I don't even think this should be controversial. 8.5 points for Georgia Tech in this game is way too many. Think about that. Duke is an 8.5 point favorite. Tech's coming off of a 2-game losing streak. And Duke is coming off of a 5-game winning streak. I don't see how you're giving 8.5 points. Like, Bobby Dodd should not give you that kind of bump. At most, this game should be a 3-point line. If you just force me to bet right now, I'd take Duke in the points. But it should be interesting. So if you look at Duke's team, seems like the strength of their team is their defense. Really no surprise there. Manny Diaz, probably one of the better defensive coordinators in the country. They're led by on the rushing game by Star Thomas. Now, he had a game against North Carolina last week, 480 yards, 3 touchdowns on the year. I think he ran for more than 100 yards last game. North Carolina could not do anything with this running back in the second half. Now, Tech's rush defense, we're going to look at it, is pretty good, so he's going to have his work cut out for him. But yeah, they're led in receiving yardage by Jordan Moore, 420 yards, 3 touchdowns. And Malik Murphy, this is the guy that kind of concerns me for this game. Transferred from Texas. He was stuck behind Manning and Ewers once Manning committed there. Transfers to Duke. He's an athletic guy. 1,226 yards, 12 touchdowns on 4 interceptions. Only knock I have against him, it's not even a knock, is he's young. He's developing. Similar numbers to like Haynes King, though, and a lot of people talk about Haynes King. Not a lot of people talk about Malik Murphy. So let's just look at, and these are stats ranked within the ACC. If you look at pass defense, Duke's number 1. Now that suits up to be interesting. Georgia Tech's number 11 in pass defense, but Georgia Tech offense at its best has been the best passing the ball. So it's going to be a very interesting matchup going against the top pass D in the ACC with a Georgia Tech team that's struggling to run the ball. If you're a Duke fan watching this, the problems with Georgia Tech have been, first and foremost, on offense, they can't run the ball, which is a massive surprise to anyone that was familiar with what this team did last year. First 1,000-yard rusher since 2018 with Jamal Haynes. Haynes King is Georgia Tech's leading rusher right now. He's the only one in the top 25 in rushing yards in the conference, Haynes King, which is really sad. On the defensive side, Georgia Tech can't rush the passer to save their life, and they've struggled mightily in pass defense. So, moving on, pass offense, Duke number 10, Georgia Tech number 7. Now, like I said, I think Georgia Tech's probably better than number 7, but Georgia Tech's going to have to throw the ball to win this game, for sure. We say that every week, and it's true every week. Rush defense, Duke number 11, Georgia Tech number 3. Now, this is going to be kind of interesting on, inverting what we were talking about with the pass defense. Georgia Tech struggled to run the ball, but they're going against one of the poorer rush defenses in the conference. So that'll be something to watch out for. Does Jamal Haynes for Georgia Tech come back healthy? Do people like Trey Cooley come back? I don't think so, or it didn't sound that way from the press conference. Can Anthony Carey or Trelane Maddox step up and have a big game, 100-plus yards and a touchdown or a pair of them? Who knows? Rush offense, number 15 for Duke, number 10 for Georgia Tech. Now, I do think Duke is probably better than number 15. I've been impressed with what Star Thomas did just against Duke or UNC last week. Georgia Tech's going to have to rein that cat in. Total defense, Duke number 4. So we're facing the 4th best ACC defense. Georgia Tech number 7. I feel like Tech's worse than number 7 though, or it looks like that week in and week out when half of what you should be able to defend on defense, you're pretty awful at. I mean, it's bad, and it's lost Tech, some games this year. Total offense, Duke number 13, Georgia Tech number 9. Like we've said earlier in the video, Duke seems to just be a defensive-led team, kind of what Key was in his interim year, where Tech was very much led by their defense, and that was the cornerstone of their team. Seems to be similar for Duke, but again, don't sleep on Duke's offense. They definitely have weapons that can hurt you. Sacks, this was surprising me. Duke is number 2, I think, behind Miami in getting to the quarterback in the conference. Georgia Tech number 16. And this could prove to be the difference in the game. This would be why C-Dog has brought this up. Quarterbacks have career days against Georgia Tech's defense. Well, when you're not getting any pressure in the face of a quarterback and you allow him to get comfortable, he's probably going to have one of the better games of his career against you. Only one team in the conference is worse at getting to the quarterback than Georgia Tech. I don't think Georgia Tech's had a sack in like the last 3 games, or they've had maybe 1 sack in the last 3 games. Like I said, that could absolutely be the difference in this game. Georgia Tech facing a quarterback, Malik Murphy, who's developing but has the tools to really put a hurting on you if you let him get comfortable. Now, interesting thing on the back end, sacks allowed. Duke in the middle of the conference at 7. Georgia Tech at number 1. Georgia Tech has not allowed a single sack this year, which is really, really impressive. They were 8th in the country last year. They were number 1 in the conference in sacks allowed last year. Georgia Tech's going to have to throw the ball in this game, and probably Duke too. They probably have similar offensive game plans. Both defenses are going to try and take away the run. Well, maybe not necessarily for Duke. Georgia Tech's going to have to come out and establish a run. Georgia Tech, we talk about them having to throw the ball to win this game, and they are. But you can't just have half of your playbook unavailable to you, or you have to get more creative in running the ball for Georgia Tech. We've really struggled to run between tackles for whatever reason, maybe trying to get the perimeter run game going. Who knows? So every time we do one of these previews, I say, give me one stat that would tell you, if you didn't know the final score, who won the game. Probably, if I had to guess, just Duke's offensive numbers. If I knew Duke's total yardage, like if Duke has over, 400 yards, 450 yards of offense, I don't think that's great for Tech. This should be a game where Tech's defense is able to bow up a little bit, maybe even get to the quarterback and to fix some of the ails that are problems that have ailed them in the past. Now, one thing that we haven't talked about, turnover margin. Nationally, Duke is 40th with a positive 0.60 turnover margin. Georgia Tech at 60th with 0. So last game that got them beat. Last game, Georgia Tech had a block kick for a touchdown and a really dumb RPO decision that led to points for Louisville's defense. So Duke's almost a full turnover better a game right now in the turnover margin. That's not just something specific to this game. If you're getting more turnovers than the other team, your likelihood of winning goes way, way up. Now, if you're Georgia Tech, I do like Georgia Tech in this game. I do think Georgia Tech should win this game. Now, because we're on a 2-game losing streak and Tech has disappointed me in a lot of ways, I'm out of the prediction business. I'm not giving a final score. I'm not giving a winner or anything. What I will say is, if Georgia Tech has not corrected their turnover and special team snafu issue, they get beat in this game and they get beat easily. You cannot give the other team free points and you cannot give them extra possessions, especially a team, that has struggled on offense this year in Duke. So, like I said, I like Georgia Tech in this game. I'll be at the game. By the way, if you want to go up to North Carolina and heckle Jeff Collins, get your money in now. You can join the Discord at Crayfish. He'll help you get all that set up. But let me know in the comments what you think. If you're a Duke fan, what do you think? If you're a Georgia Tech fan, what do you think? Love to hear from you guys. Have a good one.